I finished Senlin Ascends by Josiah Bancroft recently. Liked it a lot. The book was originally published in 2013, so I'm kind of wondering where I've been for the last 8 years. Although maybe I timed my introduction to the series perfectly because this is the first entry in Bancroft's Books of Babel series. And now I can cruise through books 2 and 3 without having to wait years for each book to come out. And I started just in time for the 4th and final book, which comes out this November. So I'll be looking forward to that a lot. I'm going to try and keep this review spoiler-free. I'll try to keep it general. Garbage man. Oh, garbage man. I appreciate you, just not in this moment. Thank you, and goodbye. The only way to completely avoid spoilers is to go into a story completely blind. So if you haven't read the book, you've been warned. And go read the book, because it's great. Senlin Ascends is a hard book to classify in terms of genre. It's many things. It's sort of a surreal fantasy / low fantasy / Victorian era fantasy. Does Victorian era count as urban fantasy? If it's set in like a city / steampunk, but without the punk really. Everyone is so quaint and cheeky in this book. So I guess it's actually surreal Victorian steam. It's maybe the best way to describe it. This is really one of those books where I was asking myself, is this fantasy? It's not your classic fantasy, but it definitely has fantastical elements. The magic is very subtle. And although the world of Babel is quite gritty, it feels like the dark underbelly of a refined society. The dialogue is rather polite. Even the most despicable characters in the book, their speech is very refined. People say things like, "I beg your pardon," and "chap." And I split my time between the audiobook and the novel itself. I would listen to the audiobook on my commute to and from work, or while I was doing chores around the house. And then in the evenings, I'd lie in bed and read the book. The narrator is a British gentleman chap named Jonathan Banks. He's perfect for this book, who sounds a lot like Ewan McGregor as Obi Wan Kenobi. I pretty much just cast Ewan McGregor in my mind as Senlin. I was really surprised to find out that the author is from Philadelphia and not someplace in England, some posh city like Sussex or Wales. I don't even know if those are posh. I've never been there. It's not unusual to read a fantasy book or science fiction book and think to yourself, this world is incredible. I really wish I could visit it. I really wish I could go there. I remember as a kid reading, Harry Potter or watching The Magic School Bus and just thinking, oh man, I wish I could do that. I wish I could go to these places. That is not really the case with the world of Babel. This is not a place I would dare visit. The premise of the story is essentially this. In this world, the Tower of Babel still exists. It is a magnet for people to come and see from all over the world, but no one escapes the tower, really. It's a trap. It's a trap! Once you go inside the tower, you check in, but you never check out. The tower is essentially Hotel California, I guess. Our story begins with our main character, Thomas Senlin, and his new wife, Maria, traveling to the Tower of Babel for their honeymoon. Honeymoon destination, Tower of Babel. And what a destination. Senlin is very pragmatic, very proper. He's a school teacher in a small town. He's a total nerd. He is book smart and not street smart. He's fascinated with the Tower of Babel. It's always been his dream to visit it. And he knows basically everything there is to know about the tower. Or so he thinks. But once he and Maria arrive in the city at the base of the tower, they quickly become separated amongst the hustle and the bustle and the labyrinth of buildings and press of the crowd. Senlin quickly learns that he is ill-prepared for the big city, and he gets robbed and is essentially helpless. But he remembers that he and Maria had planned to spend their honeymoon on the 3rd floor of the tower, so he decides to make his way there. It's really his best and only shot at being reunited with his wife. He doesn't have any friends in the city to help him, and he has no money, but upon entering the Tower of Babel, he discovers that the tower is nothing like the place that he's read about. At first, the book almost feels like a collection of short stories. The main character works his way up the tower, trying to get to the place where he can be reunited with his wife. Each level of the tower is called a ringdom, and each ringdom is its own unique and complex world, society, with its own cast of characters and its own obstacles to overcome. So as Senlin ascends up the tower, he steps into one world and meets a bunch of people and encounters problems and overcomes them, and then goes to the next level, and the process kind of repeats itself. I thought that was how the book was going to go. I was kind of prepared for the whole series. The first book, he makes it through the first 3 or 4 levels of the tower, and then the second book, he makes it through levels 5 through 7. By the end of the story, the distinct levels and worlds begin to overlap a little bit. Senlin disrupts the hierarchy of the tower, and a bigger story starts to take shape. Not only does Senlin change things in the tower, but the tower also changes him. He's stepped into something bigger. What it is exactly, we don't get the answer to in this story. The author is doing a lot of work to set up his series. It's very entertaining. There's a lot of conflict just inherent between the character and the setting. It's really fun to see Senlin grapple with things that he's totally unprepared for. You get the sense really that he's not so much fighting other people in the tower as he is fighting the tower itself, the influence of the tower. The Tower of Babel really is a hive of scum and villainy. Essentially, there are no good men and women left in the tower. There are only desperate, self-interested wretches. The tower takes good people and strips them of all their virtues. People come to the tower seeking riches, to satisfy their curiosity, to indulge. They come for opportunity, really. But in reality, the tower offers only strife and essentially slavery. No one leaves the tower. It's sad to see characters in this book who have been stuck in the tower so long and they've forgotten who they are. Don't expect realism in this story. This is not the waking world of our reality. This book really feels like you're stepping into a dream. You're stepping kind of into this parallel universe where the Tower of Babel still exists and the societies run on steam. They've got airships, that type of stuff. It's very surreal. The second level of the tower was my favorite part of the book. The parlor is what it's called. Man, I just loved that. I just love that section. It's something that's gonna stay with me forever, I think. I got chills reading that section. So for me, this book really did have the wow factor, mainly just because, oh, Garbage Man's back. He's on this side now. The book is rich with symbolism and metaphor, a bunch of literary terms, and it feels like something you could really dig into in a college literature class. I think it's easy to see the tower as a critique of unbridled capitalism, a system of unchecked greed and ambition in which everyone is looking out only for themselves and crawling over everyone else to get ahead, climb higher in life, secure their place at the top of the tower. Only a few people really hold power, and everyone else is basically enslaved. They're a cog in the great machinery that is the tower. That's one interpretation that I felt was pretty obvious. But as I read the book, I also felt like the tower was kind of adulthood, really. Senlin is innocent and naive, much like a child when he first comes to the tower. He's wanted to go there his whole life. It's like when you're a kid, you can't wait to grow up. But once you're an adult, you kind of just want to be a kid again sometimes, because life as a kid is more carefree. The world doesn't seem as complex. You can be free from obligations and responsibilities and the pressures of scraping out a living. Once you awaken from the dream that is childhood, it's easy to become disillusioned with the problems and the responsibilities that come with being an adult. Life can often feel like it's an ongoing struggle, just a series of problems, one after the other, just like the tower. You're just trying to progress, trying to get ahead. The parlor especially was a reminder to me that we're all actors, really. None of us really knows what's going on. We're just kind of playing a role in life. We have different parts to play on social media, at work, in our families. With our friends, we play different roles. Often we're not our true selves. We pretend like we know what's going on, but really we don't. No one knows what's going on. We're all just kids thrust into this world playing adults. I also found the choice of inserting the Tower of Babel into this story very interesting, because that's a very specific choice. Why the Tower of Babel? There's so much mystery surrounding the tower in the book. No one really knows who's built it. No one knows how tall it is. Why did the author choose the Tower of Babel? Why didn't he just make up his own tower? I kind of think that there's a lot to dig in there. I might make a... Oh, Garbage Man. He's just like going in circles around my house. Maybe that's Recycle Man. Recyclops. I love the Garbage Man. I love that he takes away the trash and does the recycling. I just don't understand why he's coming around so often. Should be like a one and done type of thing. The role of towers in fantasy and sci-fi and stories and myth in general is a fascinating subject I've started to think about, because it all kind of starts with the Tower of Babel, kind of the original tower. I'd like to do a separate video exploring that topic. I think it's an interesting topic. The prose. The world is ugly, but the prose is pretty. Josiah Bancroft's descriptions are vivid and clever. His word choice is impeccable. He makes it look so easy, so effortless. Honestly, I'm annoyed with my own jealousy at his writing. In the back of the book, I read an interview with the author, and he talked about how he had spent years of his life as an aspiring poet, and I think it shows. Often his writing is very poetic. So, pro tip there for any aspiring writers out there: if you want to improve your prose, practice poetry. In terms of language or violence or sexual content, I'd say the book is pretty PG-13, although there are some instances of kind of shocking violence. I can think of two in particular. On overall rating though, I would give it 4.5 stars out of 5. There's really just one thing that in my opinion holds it back from being a 5-star book, and that actually is the relationship between Senlin and Maria. I found it kind of an odd relationship, the way it was set up. It's as if they're an odd match, not truly in love. Senlin is awkward. When you're introduced to both characters, it doesn't seem like Senlin has this strong romantic attachment to his wife. On page 6 of the book, this is how we're introduced to Senlin and Maria. This is how their marriage is described. He'd married for entirely practical reasons. Maria was a good match. She was good-tempered and well-read. thoughtful, though not brooding, and mannered without being aloof. She tolerated his long hours of study and his general quiet, which others often mistook for stoicism. He imagined she had married him because he was kind, even-tempered, and securely employed. Not exactly the spiciest marriage, you know? Doesn't really do a lot to instill passion and dedication, so it's a strange introduction to their relationship. It kind of made it hard for me to understand and get behind Senlin's determination to be reunited with his wife. I get that he's stranded and feels like he can't abandon her, and we do get some flashbacks later on that help round out their relationship a little bit more, and that helps, but that initial impression works against everything else that comes. Why are you falling on me? So hopefully we'll learn more about Marya as this series continues. She does get a little section in this book that catches you up on what she's been doing in the tower, but it felt rushed to me. It didn't feel completely developed. I just wonder why the author didn't portray them as being more in love in the beginning. Senlin can still be a nerd, but this is their honeymoon. It raises some questions. Was it intentional? I guess I'll have to keep reading to find out. And I'm gonna do just that. I really enjoyed this book. I'm deep into the second book right now, and I'm really enjoying it as well. So I highly suggest you go and pick up a copy if you haven't. Have you read Senlin Ascends? What did you think? Let me know in the comments below, and I hope to see you back here when I return to review the sequel, Arm of the Sphinx. All right, see you soon.